Hello, good morning, everybody, and welcome to my channel. My name is Margaret Pinard, and I'm a historical fiction and fantasy author and eclectic reader. And today we're doing a Wednesday wrap up. Boom! Second one of the year. So, hope you're all writing 2026 on your documents by now. For today, the theme is rereading. Do I plan rereading? Almost never. But did I do a whole lot of it in the last couple weeks? Yes. Yes, I did. So I'll show you some of what I'm rereading and whether I'm keeping it or tossing it and hauling it. And then the 4 or 5 books that I read for the first time. And then we'll go into current reads because the one I'm currently reading right now is really good for Climathon. So if you're new here and you like eclectic reads, lots of nonfiction, lots of historical, and some snarky comments. Jump on in. The water's cold this time of year, but being together helps. I just want to do a little flag at the beginning for announcements. Number 1, if you are doing something soon, pop it in the chat and I'll put it up on the screen at the end of the stream. And number 2, I just want to remind folks, if you're preparing for February with TBRs, there's a Black Author Tuber readathon. And if you're curious about which Black Author Tubers have books out, there is a spreadsheet, and I got it this time. I checked it. You can check out this link in the chat for the spreadsheet that will give you lots of books to choose from, lots of genres, and potentially other people to do a buddy read with. And a lot of these are short books. So then you can dive in, do one book, and support a fellow author tuber. So I just want to remind people of that at the top of the hour before we dive in. And say hello to the chat. So Cat Paw was here an hour early and then said, I'm hanging my hopes on a Lunar New Year right now. Yeah, there's a lot of astrology stuff for me happening on February 1st. I just listened to all 3 of the podcasts that Renee does over on Embodied Astrology. And my rising sign didn't really seem to apply, but my moon sign really did, which is interesting. So, yeah, interesting stuff to contemplate. This is happening this morning. Is anyone else having trouble with Storygraph app? Not the app on the desktop, but on the phone. It's just like black screen and thinking. So am I the only one, or is anyone else having an issue? Hi, Eloise is here. Happy Wednesday. Mojo is here. Hey, in the middle of uploading books. Okay. Is that a sit and wait kind of thing? Is that like you have to press it and then wait for it to load? That's kind of annoying in my book. Louise says, I've got to pop away for a client call, but we'll keep you running in the background. Don't forget to high five that like button. Excellent. Thank you for the reminder. I'm going to star this because this is the link for the spreadsheet. I tested it just before. It works. I'm not going to confuse it with any other link. If you want to find the playlist, it's the top of my home tab, but this is the one to look at to find a book and find an author tuber. Greg says, Storygraph is working for me, both the iPhone app and the website. Okay, well, then I guess I'm going to have to delete the app and re-download it. Thank you for that. Hi, Alan. Evening. Ellen, Voxer deletes your chats after a little bit, and so I have it marked down that we're doing a buddy read in April, May, and not which book. Can you remind me in the chat? And I know we're doing a second one now, probably later, so I'm going to need to put both of those, tag them in Storygraph when it works for me on the desktop, so I'll remind myself, because it's on here with your name on a sticky note for the first one, but now I don't remember which one it is. So it's been a hectic start to the year. Catpa says, this new moon was conjunct my moon. I feel squished. And then the magnetic storm. Yeah, I heard there's the biggest, I think it's another week maybe, the biggest solar flare in many years is happening soon. And so that means issues for weather at the poles. And so people are having to make provision for those in the FAA world, the flights around the poles area, which is really interesting and has something to do with my current read. So as a teaser, to stay till the very end when I'll go over what I'm currently reading. Many years, since 2003. Wasn't that just yesterday? Oh, it was the last 2 days. Okay, I thought we still had a few more days. I must have listened to it a little longer ago than I thought. Okay. Oof. Interesting. David George Haskell, Songs of Trees. Okay. Let me take it down and remind myself. It's up here. Oh, maybe it's in my pile. Is it in my pile already? It's of trees. It shouldn't be. Okay, I'm just gonna have to write it down. Okay. What do I have here? Receipt. Songs of Trees. That's good enough for the live stream. Okay. Thank you, Ellen. All right. So the first book is this one, Mess. And I had a little laundry basket for this emoji. This is a debut novel by Michael Chesler. This is one of the ones I ordered new to support an indie bookstore last fall. I started reading it last fall. It's from Green Feather Books. And put it down and then did all the holiday travel and came back and then finished it up in January. So this says Marie Kondo, who we just discussed, meets the Real Housewives in this charming and perceptive story of a professional organizer to Hollywood's elite who learns to find love and acceptance amid the messiness of life. And I will say, as I was reading this, I did not want to pick it up because the character was, we were in her head and she was just judging everyone around her. And the tiny baby steps she was making towards that love and acceptance that you hear about on the back wasn't really enough for me. So it was funny. There are definitely pieces that I appreciated, and it does have an arc and she does grow. But one of the structure things of this book was strange because I thought it was pointing me to a discovery where she was doing something bad and it was going to be discovered, but it doesn't really lead to anything and it just deflates without a bang. So that was a bit weird. I will say it did have me looking up words. Let me see. I did not underline them. Words that I had not come across before. And one of them was bathetic, I remember. I had to look that up. And let's see if I can find another one. Maybe that's... Maybe that's the only one I'm going to remember from this, even though I turned down corners. That's not a big deal. I'm not seeing them pop out at me, but I do appreciate a book that gives me more vocabulary. I think this had like 3 or 4 words that just dropped into the prose, and I thought, oh, I have no idea what that means. I need to look it up, and that was pretty cool. So a bit of a cerebral, interesting character growth and funny setting because it's in Hollywood where someone who used to be in the industry is now organizing for rich people in the industry. And yeah, she's an interesting observer of their lives and the commentary on their lives and their quirks helps us set up like what she's struggling with and her relationship and her life. So interesting, literary fiction, not a romance, and neat cover. And I'm going to be passing it on. So it's one of those gamble and then see how you like it. And then maybe you like it and maybe you don't. Another one that is left over from last year is this fancy adult picture book, Greg. So I picked this up at a used bookstore. It's another Mark Hampton. I think I wanted a different one of his books, but this is the one that I picked up. Legendary Decorators of the 20th Century. And like, look, obviously what got me was the beautiful painted illustration of a library on the cover, but he's writing a lot. Whoops, that's an erratum. And he's illustrating most pages. Some of them are color, some of them are black and white. Hi. And obviously someone had an in with a publisher and they just gave all their books to this used bookstore because there were several there. But it's going through all these like big names, maybe half of which I've heard of. And I liked how we talked about their lives and their influences and how daring they were. But to me, history of interior decoration in 20th century America is a lot of words that don't mean anything. Daring, sublime, restraint, just like things that I don't really think they mean anything. It's like magazine talk. So I do really like the illustrations and they're fun to give ideas for interior decorating, but I'm not going to need to keep this. So I might go back and try to find the other Mark Hampton book that was just on decorating and it was like rules of decorating and things that go together, because that seemed more useful to help, shape your environment. But this about various hoity-toity decorators, not just in the US, but mostly, was not really something that I needed. So I just started skimming. Yeah. It was nice to look at when I wanted to not use my brain. Hi, Julie. Welcome and good morning. The new vocabulary word that I could remember without searching too long on the page was bathetic, Bathetic. And it has to do with the root bathos. And I can't remember what it means now. It's something, it's not pathetic, but Greek, right? Hey, Leslie. Hello. Let's see. Now we're going to jump into the rereads. So why was this such a reread type of 2-week period? Well, I brought some books back with me from home to bring the whole library together. And these mass market paperbacks, which I had fun talking about last week, were some of the ones that I really liked. It's a series called The Others by Anne Bishop, who's a huge science fiction, fantasy / paranormal romance writer. The closest author I can give as a comp for Anne Bishop's The Others series is Gail Carriger. She writes paranormal romance, and it's really more like comedy rather than romance, because yes, there's like matching and pairing off, but it's hilarity, really. It's like a musical comedy. And these have definitely social commentary underlying the funny species to species hilarity. So there's a little extra that I don't think the Parasol verse has with Gail Carriger. But if you're looking for a good paranormal series, this is a world where Earth natives is how she calls them, and she has like italics for terra indigene. That's how I said it in my head. I guess I don't know because I haven't listened to them. But basically, they rule the Americas, and when humans came over from Europe, they tried to conquer it, but they didn't succeed. And the Terra Indigene learned from humans some cool tricks like transportation and communication and art and stuff like that. The Terra Indigene include lots of different life forms, including werewolves and vampires and elementals. And what else is in there? Bear shifters, etc. Right? So like every kind of animal, and it has a representative. and they liked some of the things that the humans brought over. And so they have this like fight for dominance. And then they say, okay, you can stay here as long as you do XYZ. And so these agreements were drawn up. But in our time, in the 1990s, this is when these were written, the humans have overstepped their mark. They have a movement called Humans First and Last. They are trying to make scapegoats of the others who are trying to be bridges between the two worlds and get people angry at them. Sound familiar? So highly relevant today, 30 years later, unfortunately. And I've only got the 3 books here. There's 2 more, maybe 3 more in the series. And I did read them, but I got them from the library. So really good series, really funny, really cute. Like it's not high on the romance. It's more about like learning to live with other species and people who are different from you, and then also like the big menace and how that evil is spread. So really fun. And you know, I'm not going to keep these either. I have reread them and gotten what I will. So if anyone would like these, I think they'd be easy to send in the mail in the US. So let me know if you're interested. And then the other rereads, these are actually rereads, but I actually bought them. So Deanna Raybourn. If anyone knows Deanna Raybourn, she's a historical romance writer who has sort of bridged into historical fiction and contemporary thrillers. So Deanna Raybourn started off with this series called The Lady Julia Gray series. It started with Silent in the Grave, and then the second one is Silent in the Sanctuary. And they're sort of like my Grace Burroughs sweet spot. They're mysteries, they're historical, and then they've got romance, and they're pretty spicy romance. And so this is set. I remember I've been switching 1880s. All right, so it's set in the 1880s. You know, not too concerned with all the decade or specific year markers, but it's a woman who is investigating the death of her husband, and the inspector is the person who is like the dark mysterious stranger, and she's sort of very naive and quickly gets onto lots of different worlds where she is not doesn't know what to do. So there's humor. There's also, like I said, spicy scenes, a lot of like tension and some yearning finally when she realizes what she wants. A lot of like clues and whodunit kind of vibes, and lots of red herrings. Not too many, but like I had read this before, and when I read it, I was like, who is it? Who is it? And I didn't remember. They're too unobtrusive. So very well done. Second time reading it, I couldn't guess. But yeah, good murder mystery and fun personalities thrown in. Deanna Raybourn, in case you don't remember, she wrote Killers of a Certain Age. So it's got a really cool graphic cover with a lady with a big chopping knife. Pretty famous. And so she's kind of gone in this new vein of contemporary thrillers with older protagonists. And that's kind of a thing now. So she's jumped on that trend pretty successfully. I think she was also known as the queen of Twitter because she was just very good at not sallying forth, throwing sallies back and forth. Let's call it. And now that Twitter is a melted down hellscape, I'm sad that I can't see her there anymore. But I had heard that these are no longer available. They're no longer being printed. So I snapped them up so that I could do a reread. And again, I don't think I'll keep them. But it was nice to reread. And in 2 books, they have not gotten together. So now I have to find the third one to reread it, because like in an arc of a series, this is a very long series. There's probably like 15 books, like Jacqueline Wynne Spears. In a long series, they have to make that a very slow burn get together, and then they fight crime together, basically. And so I was like, oh, I'm probably going to get the book that they get together in, because that'll be the most exciting, the most satisfying, and then keep that one, which is kind of silly. But hey, we know what we like, right? We know what we like. Let's see, catch up on the comments. Hello, Eva. Good morning. Hello, Felicia. Dreaming Truth, that author. Hello, hello. All amazing titles. Yeah, so far we're lukewarm. I was gonna take a quick break because we're halfway and ask if other people have upcoming events. So I did at the top of the hour my little announcement for Black Author Tuber Readathon, just to encourage people to look at the spreadsheet. But if you guys have events coming up, readathons, big long sprints, there's the under 1K subscriber marathon. I think it was just this last weekend, maybe. But if other stuff is coming up, drop the link and let people know if they want to participate, they can. So that's fun. Hi, Jim. What you reading Wednesday? It's Wednesday. Yeah. Wednesday, and I've already done my morning routine and put on a little laundry and hung it up and put the next one in, but I can't go yet because I have to wait until all the hangers are empty, so they need to dry during the day. And yeah. I don't know. I've got a dentist appointment later today. Fun stuff. Fun Wednesday stuff, everybody. That's my announcement. Okay. Now I was a little salty about this one. I'm going to jump back into the next book. Giving Up is Unforgivable. I put this on Blue Sky with this sticky note that says insipid, anodyne. I was pretty annoyed. So you know how I was like, I didn't want to pick up mess because the person was annoying and unlikable. This was very hard for me to get through. This is like so short, 170 pages with the postscript. And it took me forever because I was having to force myself to keep reading it. Joyce Vance, no relation, is a lawyer and current commentator on American politics. She was in the previous administration as an AG, Attorney General, I think. And so she has a good perspective on all the legal shenanigans that are happening and the destruction of the institutions, etc. And her whole thing here, which could have been an essay, is about we can't give up on the institutions and give up on democracy because there's no other way to survive or fight through. And I'm like, okay, but like that's all she's saying. She did this in the first 6 months of last year and published it. And so it's got some timely events, but only from the first 5 or 6 months. And then like it just kept going. So it's a weird book to read because we're 6 months out from this now and she hasn't kept up with it because it's a book. So whoever recommended Joyce Vance to me as like another Heather Cox Richardson, nope, I did not find the writing style very persuasive and I was annoyed that I finished it. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on that, and I'll return that to the library. I guess what I like with books that are going to talk about the current abomination is when they say, here's what's wrong and here's how we can attack it, or here's what's wrong and here's the vision of the future that we should bring in, or here's what's wrong and here's how we can survive, get by, edge our way past this terrible thing in the hallway, and try to help each other. And she just didn't try to do any of that. It was just like a Democrat apologist kind of feeling, and that was really a letdown. So I will listen to Heather Cox Richardson. Her podcast on YouTube is pretty good. She does have a way of doing this too often that really bugs me. So she has like a verbal tongue tick thing that bothers me. But you know who doesn't? The Daily Beans. which is MSW Media. MSW stands for Muller, She Wrote. This is a podcast that's put out every weekday by Allison Gill, who started Muller, She Wrote as a podcast, and includes Dana Goldberg, who is a comedian. So we've got a former military, former VA employee, kicked out by the Trump administration reporter. And then we've got, she's really good on the legal stuff, explaining it in a good way. And then we've got a comedian who is also an activist and helping her like get through the headlines and stuff. So they're a good duo. They're really funny. They swear while they deliver the news, and it's just enough usually. Sometimes it's a little bit much, but it's just enough most days where I can take it and absorb it and not get overwhelmed. So they're my favorite podcast, The Daily Beans on MSW Media on YouTube, in case anyone else needs something bite-sized. So yeah, not these other two. Am I currently writing a project too? Good question, Eva. I keep wanting to do an author update with the coloring pages from Regina that she so kindly sent over. I did do one. It takes forever to do these coloring pages, y'all. So that's why I haven't figured out a way to do it on a live stream yet. But I do want to do that. I'm trying to get back into the writing project that my mom sent me and edit that probably about 4/5 of the way through. And then I want to jump back into reading my book. It's a funny thing. I thought, okay, well, what if I talked to the cover designer and did that process to get me excited about the story? And then that'll like give me an entree back in. Now I am talking to the cover designer and they're moving too fast for me. And I need to read the book again before I give them my first round of feedback. And I'm like, wow. So that's where we are with the writing project. Jim's reading Down Under, Monday and Mayhem, Night Watchman, and The Voyage of the Beagle. Multiple reads. Too much swearing? No, not too much swearing, just too much news. Swearing is always acceptable. Yeah. All right, so the next one I have here is Gentleman Jim. So this is one of my favorite historical romance authors, Mimi Matthews. She's got maybe a dozen books out from varying eras, and sweet romance to historical fiction, kind of saucy commentary. And I like her sweet romance series, and I like her newer, more commentary, social commentary, historical fiction romance. This is in the middle and satisfies neither. So again, just sort of disappointed for one of my favorite authors, not my favorite book. Gentleman Jim, she says, and the author note was kind of inspired by Count of Monte Cristo. Alan, I don't think this is a recommendation for you. And Tom Jones, and I haven't read either. I've got a vague conception of what they are, but it's a person who grew up an orphan without parentage, and secretly there's a whole backstory, and the woman who waits for him and is under terrifying circumstances because of patriarchy sees him again, and what happens, right? I really like the cover. That's a really neatly designed cover, since I'm thinking about covers, but yeah, less than her usual quality, so I'm gonna pass that one along as well. Another historical romance, and this one is much more contemporary style. It's by Evie Dunmore, Bringing Down the Duke. And I've read one other book in this series, which is a 5-star read. Which one is it? Does not say the rest. So this must be the first in the series. Basically, it's a bunch of blue-stocking women in Oxford in 1879 when they first opened up Oxford College to women, to Lady Margaret Hall. And that's a great starting point. First of all, when you find, okay, this is how writing happens, right? You find a fact like this, like Oxford first opened its degree courses to women in 1879. And you go, huh, that must have been an interesting time. And then you research and realize that they didn't open the Oxford campuses, not campuses, but like quads and dorms, obviously, because women and men had to live separately. So basically, what she doesn't hear, she says they rented out a room above a bakery in the town center or whatever, and that's where they had classes. And all the women had to have chaperones in the class with the people who they were being tutored by. And it just felt very real. And then our heroine here goes to this this tutor. She has this program because she has a stipend. She has a bourse. She has a scholarship. And in order to get the scholarship from the suffragists, she has to participate in suffragist activities. And so her time is spent not just studying with a scholarship, but also doing work for the suffragists, and then trying to do all these things. And then also to satisfy her cousin at home who she was working for, she has to send him money because she was doing maid work. So anyway, basically impossible situation. And of course, she gets rescued. There's like a dust up and lots of what's not miscommunication, but just misunderstandings, and basically assumptions are made, and that's just delicious when you get to like throw those back in the person's face. So she's got, I would say Mimi Matthews' style is much more sweet and yearning, and I wouldn't say ornate, but Evie Dunmore's is more like side-eye, like sarcastic, much more Deanna Raybourn, newer contemporary thriller vibe. And the other book that I read by her was really good. So this is the second book by Evie Dunmore, and 4-star. One of the things that I was confused by is there's two things in this book that are historical things. One is saying 30 and 5. And in other historical fiction, I've always heard people say 5 and 30 when they're talking about their age. If you're going to split it up and not say 35, which is modern, fine. But I've never seen anyone else say 30 and 5. Can anyone else help me out on that? Was that a thing? Is that like she did real research and pulled that out, or she just, no one caught it? Because that's the only time I've seen that. And the other thing is to use the word hasted. So I'm familiar with the word hasten, and I don't think you can shorten it to haste as the verb. So she hasted. It's hastened. So again, if you know the answer to this, I haven't looked it up in the OED yet, enlighten us and tell me if this is just every other historical fiction ever, or she got it wrong. Because it's a small thing. It doesn't bother me. I mean, it does bother me, but it doesn't ruin the book for me. But yeah, let me know on those two. 30 and 5 and hasted. So yeah, let me know about those. But didn't spoil my enjoyment. I just kept turning down the bottom corner of the page because I was like, nope, that doesn't exist. Nope, that's not right. But now I need validation because now I'm questioning my own self-knowledge here. Count of Monte Cristo, wrongful accusations, imprisonment, and revenge. Okay, so in Gentleman Jim, we have a wrongful accusation, but he escapes the imprisonment and comes back for revenge. So yeah, he's gonna try to just like ignore for the rest of his life, but then he sees the guy and he's like, oh, this isn't good. This isn't going down the way. No, duel time, which was pretty fun. Cat Paw says, I'm trying to finish books I started last year, but then I got this real page turner of a book, The Grasping Root by some Margaret Pinard. Yay! Make your way through the trilogy. My Grasping Root is up there in the corner. So I try to display all the books in some way, but there's a few there, and there's only a few slots. Yeah, I think Jim's favorite was the second book, which is interesting. My favorite, I think, is still the third book, which no one reads. In terms of craft, obviously the story, the first book is what set it up, but the third book is the one that I really liked going back to read and made more sense to me. Hasted is UK English. Okay, Cat Paw's positing something. I need the other Brits to weigh in, Alan and Jim, because I've never seen hasted. Maybe it's just evolved from Middle English differently, and so it's not in evidence, but I would like to know. Okay. All right, so all those books, no audiobooks. I was going on walks, but think I was trying to listen to podcasts and stuff. And so I didn't do as much. Oh, you know what I did? I had a Libro audiobook DNF. I got 23% through. And I was like, no, this is supposed to be a romance. And they just met the love interest 23% of the way through. And he was terrible. I was like, no, I don't want to hear about him. Redemption journey. Nope. So it was interesting, but not interesting enough after that. So I DNF'd, and I haven't gone back to my Libro.fm audiobooks. So no audiobooks to report. No. Oh, there is an ebook to report, but I'm going to save it for the next wrap up where I do my Black Author Tuber readathons because I have some of those to recommend. So that'll be fun. And then it's time for current reads. So no announcements. We'll see if anyone has current reads to contribute. Jim already did. Jim says, I haven't encountered hasted. 5 and 30 was used in 3 Men in a Boat. 30 and 5, I haven't registered. Yeah, it just seems weird. Emma just did a Regency novel. Emma, do you know anywhere where people say 30 and 5 instead of 5 and 30 after their age for numbers in the Regency era or 19th century in general? Okay, current reads. While we wait on with bated breath for the answer from another Brit. Okay, excellent Climathon first read of the year. This is one that I skipped the whole pile that I went through, and I got this from the library. It's The Blue Machine, How the Ocean Works by Helen Chersky. So I was really excited to read this. I found out about it either last year or the year before when I was looking at all the Climathon recommendations in Storygraph. And I thought, oh my gosh, this would be really good if it's accessible, right? And by accessible, I mean, did not have a good science education background. Like biology in high school was, chemistry was okay, physics was okay, and then I had some real bird courses for my science requirement in college, right? So there's not much background. And when I listen to audiobooks or read science books, a lot of it is like real basic stuff that I don't have grounded in, which is embarrassing. And so I was like excited to find someone who might be explaining something that is really important to climate change, how the ocean works, in a way that I could comprehend. And so far, she's doing a really great job. Kind of reminding me of Alice Henderson in her biology, wildlife info drops and her murder mysteries. But yeah, basically this is about, well, the reason it's called The Blue Machine, I'll start there, is the word machine just means like something that, well, she explains it, and now I've already forgot it, but machine doesn't necessarily mean metal parts. It just means something that makes something go with a series of parts, right? And so she explains about temperature and poles and earth spin and density of water. And there's just so many cool things I've already picked up. Now, admittedly, imagining the earth spinning with the density is two things going on at once. It's kind of like patting my head and rubbing my tummy kind of thing where I'm like, okay, I can't envision this in my head because I can't envision things moving in 3D space in my head. But she explains it, and I've turned it down to hopefully go back and understand it after I've read more. She explains it pretty well, and she uses lots of metaphors, which is helpful. And she talks about people who discovered these things and people who contributed to our learning. So there's a little bit of science history. She talks about the Fram, which is a North Pole wooden boat that someone designed in the 1890s to track if there was a transpolar current. And it's not like an icebreaker ship. It's like she calls it like a soup bowl disguised as a boat because it was meant to mimic water and work with the density and the salinity and the characteristics of ice at the poles. And she just explained it really well. So that was really neat, that expedition. And then there was the latest cool thing I can remember is learning about the shelf between the Arctic Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. So if you're Eric the Red and you're going from Norway out to Greenland, can't imagine why that would be in the news these days. You're going along sort of this border between one kind of water that is, I think it's less salty. So it's more fresh and colder in the Arctic Ocean and more salty and warmer in the Atlantic Ocean. I think I have that right. And it's sort of this dividing line where there's a big lip under the ocean surface where you go across and you can't see it obviously, but you're on, like, if you're in a pool and you have a kiddie pool and a little lip and like the deep end, you're cruising over that line, and there's two different types of water, and the one in the Arctic is constantly slipping over and plunging down, and it's actually the Denmark Strait Cataract something or other, the tallest waterfall in the world, and it's in the ocean. And then I was like, I heard about that before, didn't I? And I looked it up and I was like, I think it's from QI. It was on QI. And I pulled up the clip and I was like, oh, see, now I know, which is pretty fun. Alan says, you made me get off the couch to check my OED. Haste and hasten. So is haste a verb? Haste ye. And a noun, haste, make haste. But can you say hasted? That's what I'm wondering. Hasten, hasten. Jim says, I'm 61. Well, that's another way of saying it, yes. Rajits say haste, hasten, and hasty. Okay, so noun and verb, and adjective. That's what I'm tracking. Julie says, I am 69 and I don't know how that happened. Turgeon counts in 20s. Interesting. So that makes sense to say 60. Tom Hanks and Linda Hamilton are also 69. Well, there you go. Hasted is used in the Bible. It means quickness in movement or action. Hasted. Quickness. So it's a noun. Hasted? Or is it an adjective? See, I don't know. My web went down. How many score am I? You're 2 and something, Eva. I stand educated. Yes, hasten is a verb. Haste is a noun. Okay. So this is supporting my understanding that haste is not a verb, which is how it was used. I'll send it to you and see if you agree or disagree. But yeah, so much cool ocean knowledge, and that is my first successful Climathon pick there that I'm pretty excited to read. I'm still working on Practicing New Worlds, which is activism theory, and I'm still working on the Madhur Jaffrey cookbook. I'm within 100 pages of the end of sticky noting all my recipes that I want to make, and so that's all very good. How about you guys? What are you enjoying reading at the moment? Haste makes waste. Yes. Haste makes things faster. And gaming as a perk on weapons. Oh my gosh, they've appropriated the word, and now it means something totally different for gaming. A perk on weapons. Yeah, I would not have known this, Eva. You're bridging worlds here. Yeah, so with all those rereads alongside the sort of drier nonfiction, I'm not sure which direction I will go next. I do have a couple I thought I might read for Black History Month, which is a classic, The Street by Anne Petrie. Her wonderful things. I love that cover. and then Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko, who I follow on social media and heard great things about this. And it's a finished duology, so modern fantasy. And then, I don't know, I have this one on my like use it or lose it. Jack Nisbet is an author who I have more than one book of and I haven't read. So I was going to try to like see, okay, read one, see if you want to keep them, see if you want to read more, get rid of them if not. But this is a natural history book, David Douglas and the Natural History of the Northwest. I was a little unsure because, you know, he's one of the scientist colonizers, but we'll see how the treatment is. This book is from 2011 or maybe before. So I don't know how woke they'll be, you know, and I don't want to have to trudge through a whole bunch of gross insinuation and ignorance. The other two that I got from the library that came up on holds are Nature is Never Silent, How Animals and Plants Communicate with Each Other by Madeline Zieg. And that looked really cool. I like the cover there. But in terms of the non-human life prompt for Climathon, that looked really good. So feel good book. And then Erin Kafal, who Kat Powell will remember is the one who wrote the water book. What's the Cli-Fi water book that you and I both loved? They have a nonfiction. How do I describe this? A growing memoir genre that explores illness and healing. It draws a poetic parallel between the body's experience of chronic disease and the marine ecosystems Kafal knows well. Yeah. So I think it's like memoir-y, but also nature. So nature memoir again, and by a really great writer. So also a really pretty cover. And it's not a bestiary in that it like shows all these animals. But I think it is a catalog of losses, I think. So I think this might be a heavy read, but like it sounds really good. And she's such a good writer that I'm excited for that. So those are kind of the things. Climathon and Black AuthorTuber, Black History Month that I'm like bobbling between. How about you guys? Julie says, my current read is Elena Knows by Claudia Pinheiro, and I'm loving it. The tiny degrees of movement associated with the protagonist's illness is heartbreaking. Okay. I know about Claudia Pinheiro only because of Book Chat with Pat and the Pinheiro Project. So I'm wondering if that's also where you heard about that author. Eva says an axe with haste would swing faster than one without. See, to me, I would say an axe wielded by Aragorn. I did last weekend, I think was the 25th anniversary for Lord of the Rings. I did actually watch one CD's worth, and I listened to commentary about the second half of the Fellowship. So we started in Rivendell, and it was pretty cool. Yeah, they get to Moria, and I'm watching these scenes, and I'm going, why don't they have a workout routine by now that is get fit to kill orcs in Moria? Why is that not a thing? Like, that's what I want to build up to. Defensive maneuvers in Moria. But no one is seen fit to cater to that market, and that makes me angry. Ellen. A Deep Cry, edited by Anne Powell. Have a Poetry Thursday coming tomorrow. Does this have to do with the Poetry Thursday? Is this the poetry book? If it's edited, is it various poets and you're picking one? Yeah, it's Wednesday, so Thursday is Poetry Thursday. Greg is rereading The Monkey Wrench Gang by Edward Abbey. You know what that makes me think of? The Brown Yelp Gang, of course. Nature is Never Silent looks interesting. The Way of Water? The Way of Water. No. It's called All the Water in the World. That's what it is. Google didn't stupid AI is summarizing for me and saying it's wrong. It's not the weight of all the water in the world. It's all the water in the world. That's the really good fiction book. And Mourner's Bestiary is nature memoir. Yes, Julie says that's where I heard about Claudia Pinheiro, and Pat said Elena Knows was her favorite of what's been translated so far. Nice, great recommendation. So Anne Powell is the editor of A Deep Cry, which is soldier poets killed on the Western Front in the First World War. Okay. And you're going to pick one of those for tomorrow's Poetry Thursday, I presume. Gotcha. I don't know how niche this is, but I got interested as a sort of a side quest in World War I, in the fact that the social changes that it created were so vast. And one of them is I don't know. It's hard to think about. I've read a book and a half on this, and I didn't finish the second one, but the missing men, the phrase "a monstrous regiment of women." There's this whole demographic legacy from World War I, where all these new ways of living had to be found for women because there weren't enough men surviving for families to go on as normal. And so I've read about single women after World War I, basically until after World War II, and the different types, the modes of living, the kind of like how a heart will find a vessel in a new way to make room for blood pumping. These women who did not have partners, like, found new ways to live, found new ways to be, occupations, traveling, new freedoms. And it's kind of like strange, right? It's this monumental loss that everyone suffers, but then it makes room for these strange new ways of being. Yeah, I'm very curious about that and how it's wound its way through our culture. Kappa says yes. Didn't sound right, but it was the first to spring to mind. Yeah, close enough. All the water in the world. Yeah, good deal. Good deal. I don't think I have an audiobook ready to go since I DNF'd the other one. I have plenty to choose from. I'm not raring to go on the audiobooks. So I think that's about it. I was wondering if I should comment a bit more on the Evie Dunmore brings up the another piece of the single women puzzle, and how this heroine in Bringing Down the Duke really is trying to make her own way because she thinks she made a big mistake. And the arc is a lot about realizing, you can do a lot of work to try to make your own way, to try to be independent. And that is valuable and courageous. But then if you have another relationship come up, sometimes the courageous thing is risking everything and being vulnerable again, to change all that you've learned. Oh boy, and did that ring true. So I just love when there's that modern relatability to something that existed 200 years ago. So I like when authors can do that. It's very talented twists, I think. So that is all I have. Yeah. And just a reminder, whoops. Yeah, there we go. Upcoming events, Black AuthorTuber Readathon. The link to the spreadsheet is there, so you can see all the romance and fantasy and sci-fi and memoir and poetry and all the good stuff. And just pick a book and join in and support another channel for Black History Month in the US. And that would just help other channels and other people in our community. So that's my little February mission. I think that's all today. And happy Wednesday. Take care of yourselves, everybody. hydrate, get some exercise, get out in the fresh air, and happy reading. It's probably a little cold to do some reading outside, but balance and balance. Okay. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for people watching on the replay. And let me know about your British opinion on those things in the book or what you are reading. And I will see you on Friday. Bye.